Ybor City used to be the cigar manufacturing center of the world. 140 years ago this month, Vicente Martinez Ybor bought a patch of land on the outskirts of Tampa to relocate a cigar-making operation from Key West. At its peak, Ybor City boasted more than 200 cigar factories. Now, there's just one. So what happened to this industry that helped build Tampa into what it is today? For more, we're joined by Drew Newman with JC Newman Cigars. Drew, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we're also joined by Rodney Kite Powell with the Tampa Bay History Center. Rodney, thank you as well.
Of course. No, it's great to be here.
So, Drew, I want to start with you. You've got some cigars with you. Just let's take a look at these. Okay, so, and just if you hold them up for the camera, if you could. The camera's just right here. I mean, this is kind of a work of art, right? You've got the Tampa sign. Let me
these are Diamond Crown Tampa cigars that celebrate Tampa's legacy as Cigar City. And so on these cigars that are made by hand are a bunch of Tampa landmarks, everything from Plant Hall to the Jose Gasparilla ship to our factory to the Ybor City chickens to the downtown Tampa skyline, because cigars are to Tampa what cars are to Detroit, what wine is to Napa Valley. It's part of our culture, history, and tradition, and we're celebrating the 140th anniversary of the start of that Sunday.
It's kind of a beautiful piece. I mean, it seems a shame to smoke. And I should note, too, this is a no-smoking studio, so we're not going to be lighting these up in here. But you mentioned a bunch of industries that are, some of them are shadows of their former selves, right? Like Detroit. I mean, you know, you drive down the motorway there and you see that massive tire still there and it's still associated. You know, it's Motor City, but the automobile industry isn't what it used to be. Same as here, right? I mean, in Napa Valley, of course, wine is still being produced there, but it really isn't what it once was. So, I mean, is there still a place for cigar manufacturing here in Tampa?
There is. And so before Mr. Ybor came to Tampa in 1885, there were just 700 people in our region, some farmers, some fishermen, and Fort Brooke downtown. And so cigars transformed our community and built it to the largest city in the state of Florida about 100 years ago. Mm-hmm. But for lots of reasons, the cigar industry left Tampa and moved overseas starting in the 70s and the 80s and moving on to the 90s. But there's still a great place here because it's part of our history, it's our culture, it's our food, it's our the languages, it's the legacy of the cigar industry is still alive and well in Ybor City.
Rodney, as Drew was saying, like once there were dozens of factories and they were teeming with workers rolling these things. I mean, who were they and how did they influence the culture we still see here?
Well, the cigar workers came mostly from Cuba. There were Spaniards that were rolling cigars, but there was a bit of a stratified community, particularly early on, where the Spaniards generally owned cigar factories or maybe were the kind of management of the cigar factories. And you also have Sicilians who were part of the culture as well. Mm-hmm. And the reason why there were Cubans rolling cigars is because the industry came from Cuba kind of by way of Key West. And there's a variety of reasons what prompted it to move from Havana to Key West to Tampa. But one of them was labor difficulty. The other one was tariffs. We think a lot about tariffs now. Mm-hmm. There were tariffs on finished cigars, but there weren't tariffs necessarily on the raw tobacco, at least in the 1880s. And so the tobacco was brought from Cuba to Tampa, but also those workers were.
Right, and it's a skill, right? Like kind of rolling these things is a skill.
And that's the thing. Drew is, I think, really clever to mention Detroit because that is, we think about as the factory town. And nothing against those workers, but, pretty early, particularly with Ford and others, you had to automate a process, and you could be a skilled worker, but not necessarily have to be super skilled. Mm. The cigar industry was this great marriage of a massive industrial kind of factory kind of complex, but the workers were artisans. Mm. They rolled these cigars by hand, and they've been able to produce hundreds of millions per year as a group.
Right.
And that's what makes it really amazing. And they brought this culture with them from Spain, Cuba, and Sicily and Italy.
Drew, you can try your hand at rolling a cigar at your factory, right? Like,
yes.
Walk me through that process. How long does it take?
Sure. So we still roll cigars by hand here in Ybor City, just like my great-grandfather and grandfather did 100 years ago. And it's an art form, it's a tradition, and it's slow. Our rollers, each of them rolls about 80 cigars per day, mm-hmm. and it's a handcrafted process and hasn't changed. And love to show you, Matthew, how to do it next time you're our way in Ybor City.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, and yeah, I'd love to take a look at it myself, but one thing I wanted to ask you is, back in the day they had people reading to the factory workers, right?
Yes.
As they rolled. So they'd read newspapers, they'd read stories and other things too, I think. But do you have something like that going on now? Have you got a lecturer kind of reading stuff as the artisans are making these cigars?
So today our cigar rollers, most of them have earbuds in it, and they listen
Sure.
to podcast or WUSF or something else that's music while they're rolling cigars. But prior to radio, cigar rollers were entertained by lectors. The cigar rollers pooled their money together, and the rollers themselves hired this educated person who would stand on a platform and read great works of literature, news of the day, propaganda, and that's how they were entertained. And so even though Tampa cigar workers may not have been very literate functionally, they were very educated and wise because they were read to every day.
I understand there was also a baseball team called the Smokers, right? I mean, that tells you something about how embedded in the culture, the fabric of the community the cigar industry was.
Absolutely. The cigar industry had an effect on Tampa, far beyond just the manufacturing of cigars. And so, there was a semi-pro baseball team, eventually became a minor league team called the Tampa Smokers. Al Lopez, future Baseball Hall of Famer, played for the Smokers. And then really baseball, we can go on and on about that in and of itself, but baseball was extraordinarily popular in Tampa at that time. The cigar factories had their own teams. The mutual aid societies had their own teams. But then the Smokers were really the best of the conglomeration of those best players to play for the semi-pro and then minor league team. But you had Tampa was so synonymous with cigars that you had manufacturers outside of Tampa that actually use the word Tampa in their name even. So Drew they have the word Tampa on their box to signify it's from Tampa. But it got to be such a problem that the city of Tampa allowed the city's seal to be placed on cigar boxes to prove that they were made here. Because you would have Jacksonville or even Cleveland companies, no offense Cleveland, who were putting Tampa Style or Tampa Select or whatever, and they had nothing to do with Tampa other than the name.
So kind of ripping it off in some ways.
Yep, exactly.
What about the future of your cigar factory, Drew? I mean, is it going to be around for another 100 years, do you think?
Absolutely. My great-grandfather started our company in 1895, and our only goal is to continue the tradition of rolling cigars here in Tampa for another 130 years, another 4 generations.
Is a Ybor cigar best after eating a Cuban sandwich?
It doesn't matter. A Cuban sandwich, cup of cafe con leche, a deviled crab, anytime's a great time for an Ybor City cigar.
And just finally, in the last few seconds we have here, would Tampa be the city it is now without the cigar industry?
Not in the least. Tampa owes so much of its culture, its identity, its accent, so to speak, from the cigar industry and those workers who came here.
Rodney Kite Powell with the Tampa Bay History Center, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Drew Newman with the J.C. Newman Cigar Company. Thank you, Drew.
Thank you.